Howdy. Thank you for joining me today. This video series is going to be talking about the preparation for hiking. And this is the first video, so we're going to go over the reason for the video and then some very general exercises. The purpose is to help people safely enjoy hiking. And I chose hiking for some specific reasons. First of all, there's a very low barrier to entry. Here in New Mexico, you can walk outside your door and you're able to hike. There are a lot of benefits to hiking. A 2018 systemic review by Thompson, Powell, and Mons demonstrated psychological and physiological benefits from what they called outdoor sports. And a 2017 systemic review by Elkington, Cesar, Nelson, and Levinger identified some of those psychological benefits as an increased sense of psychological well-being and reduced psychological distress, as well as the well-documented physiological benefits of increased cardiovascular conditioning, strength, exercise capacity. To enjoy those benefits, however, it's very important that we prepare so that we can avoid injury. We want to make sure that we can enjoy those benefits, those dose-dependent benefits. So we have to make sure that we're able to sustain these efforts and not just hit them really high and then, shoot down, kind of drop down. So, next slide. So to prepare ourselves, we look at the most commonly injured areas. There were a couple of really neat studies on this in which they followed some young men going through basic training and then some people going through leadership camps that involved lots and lots of hiking. And they found in these studies, Hamonko and in 2011, Van Telgen in 2009, that the most common injury are these soft tissue injuries, these overuse injuries, with the areas most commonly affected, knees, ankles, hips, and backs in that order. So I've selected a really neat study from 2020. This was a forensic analysis of fatalities in the Alps. It was done by Zerka Grzyakowski and Sean, and I selected this study because the Alps and the mountains of New Mexico, they share a lot of similarities, especially in the height. And they found that the two leading causes of deaths were sudden cardiac death and falls. Sudden cardiac death refers to death that occurs typically mid-morning, in which someone experiences cardiac symptoms and die within an hour of those symptoms. Those people generally have some kind of cardiac disease, and they're typically male in their mid to late 50s. The second leading cause of death is falls, and most of those occur on trails while descending. A smaller amount of them occur while off trail, still descending, but those are typically in lower altitudes. All right, now that we know some of the leading causes of injury, which are overuse injuries, soft tissue injuries, we know the leading causes of death, which are sudden cardiac death and falls, then we can begin to look at exercises to help prevent those injuries. This protocol that I'm going to present is based on one produced in a 2012 study by Smith et al. That looked at using resistance bands to not only strengthen but increase the proprioception, that's the awareness in space, so really closely linked to balance, in persons with functional ankle instability. And I thought that this was really valuable to include because not only do we want to be strong enough and condition those strong points, but ankles really are the first place where balance begins. So I want to make sure that the proprioception in the ankles and the knees and the hips and the back is intact to help prevent those falls, especially when descending. Though in the second video we will look at some more specific exercises to help with balance and specifically descending. This study protocol had their participants exercising 3 times per week with a duration of 6 weeks, and the repetition scheme and the progression calls for using a TheraBand like this one, and this is kind of a weird non-standard color, but you're going to find that all manufacturers have different colors, and these are readily available at like sporting goods stores, at chain stores, on the internet, and they're all going to progress from one color to the next in terms of strength. In the first week, the study called for 3 sets of 10 repetitions that progress to 4 sets of 10 repetitions in the next week. If you could produce those 4 sets of 10 repetitions in that second week, then the study calls for increasing the resistance of the band and starting over with 3 sets of 10 repetitions and progressing this way for those 6 weeks. Now, it's important to say that after 6 weeks, the gains that you're going to make in strength are going to be neurological. Your body is going to be able to better utilize its muscles, better engage the muscles through better utilization of the central nervous system. If you want to continue to make physical adaptations, so stronger heart, bigger muscles, then consider continuing after that 6 weeks, so you can make those actual physical gains. In this next slide, we're going to start looking at some videos of the actual exercises, and I hope you join along. All right, so it's time to get after it. I'm going to take you through some basic exercises moving up the kinetic chain. So from the ankle, following the protocol by Smith and all, to the knees, to the hips, and just a little bit for the core, for the back. So we've got our elastic band, and the study calls for having your leg extended, having your knee as fully extended as possible, and the protocol is you sitting on the floor. However, so you can see this a little bit better, I'm going to have it propped up. The beautiful thing about this, one of the beautiful things about this exercise is you can do it sitting up, you can do it laying down. There's a lot of different ways you can do it. However, let's start with this one. So 4 basic directions for the ankle. We're going to start by holding the band, looping around our foot. Bring the toe back as far as possible so we get that full range of motion to strengthen. And then pressing down to the full range of motion. Then back nice and slowly, controlling the motion the entire way. One thing we don't want to do is bring it back and let it pull us back. We want to control that motion so we're getting eccentric and concentric strengthening. We also want to make sure that we don't just move through a partial range. If that's all you're capable of, then here later on we're going to talk about stretching the ankle so we get a more full range of motion. For the time being, however, strengthen whatever full range of motion you have. So after this plantar flexion, this up and down motion, we need to strengthen the other side. We need to be able to strengthen pulling it up towards us. To do that, you can tie it to the chair, or a piece of furniture. So we're here, and then pull up from there. And notice the closer to the toe that gets, the stronger the resistance is. So from there, we do our 3 sets of 10. Then we want to be able to move it out to the side. So I'm going to move that piece of furniture, and then we're going to bring the foot off into eversion, so off towards you. Now, one thing we really want to avoid with this motion is rolling that entire hip over. We want to make sure that we're isolating here at the ankle and not getting the knee involved. So a good way to do that is if you take a pillow, squeeze it between your knees. This keeps the hips and the knees busy, so they're going to be less likely to roll. So we get that full range of motion, 3 sets of 10, and then we're going to turn it around and do inversion. So same thing, we want to make sure that we're not rolling the entire leg. We want to start with that ankle as far into eversion as we can so that we're strengthening the entire range of motion. Then do our 3 sets of 10. From there, we want to move up the kinetic chain. So we're going to move up to the knees. And to perform this, I'm just going to loop this around the chair. And loop that around my ankle. What we want to do from here is extend that leg out, then bring it back kind of slowly. And if I were observing someone do this, I would say, you know, you don't have enough resistance, especially there going back. So I'm going to change the orientation a little bit, bring that back here. And there we go. We'll do it from there. So this way, we have as much flexion as we can get before we go into extension. So we're here, and then we can extend out, and we have resistance through the entire part. So we do our 3 sets of 10. Then we've got another range. After extension, we've got flexion. So we're going to want to pull that knee back like that. There's a couple of ways you can anchor that. You can anchor that on your chair. You can anchor that on your other leg. You can lie down and pull that back. As long as you're stretching the band towards you with that movement, you're going to be getting that kind of therapeutic effect. So we've hit the ankles, we've hit the knees, we want to hit the hips. To do that, I'm going to take the band, put it around my legs. You're going to find you have the most resistance with the band lower down your legs. We've got a couple of basic directions. We have flexion, so 3 sets of 10 here. We have abduction, 3 sets of 10 here. We have extension, 3 sets of 10 here. And then we have adduction, which can be a little difficult, but anchor it on some furniture. Then we're able to pull against it. There we go. We're able to pull against it. All right. Lastly, let's talk a little bit about the core. We're not going to spend a whole lot of time on this, but a couple of movements are real important for the core. So we're going to learn how to do a vacuum, how to activate one of our deep core muscles, and how to do a pelvic tilt. Both of those are really important because they help stabilize the back. And some of those studies I mentioned, Hamonko et al., didn't find a correlation between backpack weight and rate of injury. However, if you are using a pack, the ability to stabilize your core is going to be really important. So what we want to do is imagine there's a vacuum in our stomach. We're pulling that in. It's really important that you're able to breathe at the same time because we want you to be able to hold this while you're up and doing functional things. The next part of this is a pelvic tilt. That refers to your ability to kind of tuck that pelvis under or back. See, right here I've got this big lumbar lordosis, this big rounded part in my lumbar. By tilting that pelvis, we get a more natural lordotic curve there. And combine that with a little bit of that vacuum, you have a nice strong core. So those are some exercises to practice. 3 sets of 10 with the core, with the pelvic tilt, 5 sets of 5-second holds. Increase the strength each time. So I'd give myself a little curve, pull the stomach in, hold 5 seconds, relax, find that little pelvic tilt, pull the stomach in, hold 5 seconds, a little stronger, relax. So those are some basic exercises. That progression gets you at least 6 weeks. This next video, we're going to look at some more functional exercises. So I really hope you enjoyed this and you join me for the next exercise. Continue watching because there's going to be some references, and in the box below there's going to be a link to all these exercises on a page printout that should be a little easier to access than watching this video again and again. Alright, thanks for watching this video. Please join me for the next one. I hope you enjoyed these resources. I found them particularly valuable.